Good morning. Yes. I'm your host, Shirley Thompson, and welcome to Unity Center. We warmly welcome all people, all faiths, and all lifestyles. Unity of Vancouver is situated on the ancestral unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, who have lived here since time immemorial. It is here that we live, work, and learn together. Our mission here at Unity is to build personal community and well-being through universal spiritual teachings and practice. And of course, a special welcome to all of you who are here for the first time and those of you watching on Zoom and YouTube. Today, our talk is about whispers from the heart. So let's open our minds to some powerful new insights with 5 affirmations. All together now. The universe speaks in whispers and symbols, and my heart listens with openness and gratitude. Synchronicities remind me that I am loved and supported in ways beyond my understanding. Miracles are increasingly woven into my everyday experiences. Love flows to me effortlessly, carried by unseen currents of grace. I am loved. I am loved. I am loved. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Today's teacher is Reverend Hannelore. Reverend Hannelore is the author of many books, and she is truly a gifted storyteller. She is an intuitive counselor, and she has previously hosted retreats in Hawaii that include dolphin encounters, which has led her to becoming known in many circles as the Dolphin Lady. Hannelore's mission is to empower others to recognize their personal potential, manifest their dreams, and embrace their authentic selves. Please join me in giving a loving welcome back to Reverend Hannelore. Oh, there she is.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's so great to be back here again. And hello to all of you on Zoom and YouTube. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to start you off with a little meditation that's going to also guide you into a bit of a process. I'd like you to consider it as a celebration. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes to begin with and put your hands in your lap, palms facing up, and take a nice deep breath and release. With your next breath, take a nice deep breath and imagine you just really lifting up your shoulders and breathing and filling your lungs. And now when you release, just release any tension, any stress. Just connect with your breath very gently. So each breath is a prayer. So without words, we're acknowledging and anchoring this present moment. So what we're going to share is not only a guided meditation, but an opportunity for a sacred opening to remember what is eternal. For we live in a world that often teaches us fear, and we fear what we cannot see or we don't fully understand. But when we quiet the mind and open our hearts, we begin to realize that there is more beyond the physical, and that love never dies. It is eternal. In unity, we know there is the one presence and the one power, God the source, and the origin of all creations, and that our very essence is of that divine spark. So it is that essence that never ends and never does the love that flows from it. So connect with a possibility right now. I want you to imagine that you are all being filled with an incredible, divine, pure light. This light fills every cell and molecule of your body, and it expands and creates a beautiful sacred bubble of light around you. And you are safe in this light. And allow your heart to open to receive the love that it emanates. Now imagine that there is a window that is appearing in front of you. And imagine that there is a gentle light shining in behind that window that you're looking into. And bring to mind someone that you've loved who is no longer physically present. It might be a person, or it could be a beloved animal companion. Someone whose presence still lingers in your heart. So we're always held in the loving presence of the divine. What is divine in us is also divine in them. Because spirit is eternal, and so too is the love that connects us all. So imagine now you are on one side of the window, and those that have crossed over are on the other. And in this stillness, you sense a whisper, a warmth, a knowing, and you may even receive a message. And that message might even be, I'm okay. I'm still with you, and I love you. Allow yourself to receive that. Breathe into it. And let it settle and flow into your heart. So as you rest here, ask gently in your heart to those that are on the other side, if you have a sign for me, please show me, because I am open. I am listening. There's no need to look for anything. Just simply trust that that sign may appear in the right time and in the right way. It might be through a feather that's significant to you, or a dream, or a scent, or a song. For love will find a way. So ask you gently, I am open to receiving your sign. I thank you. So allow that opportunity to simply be. As we return into this moment, gently remember that we are guided by an infinite presence that is both within us and all around us, and that you are never truly alone. As you bring your awareness back to your breath, back to the presence of your body, back to this moment, when you're ready, open your eyes. And as you go forward now, not only in faith, but in gratitude and in practice, to remember to live in love, speak the truth, and be the light. So be it.
Quietest moments, I wish I knew what I have to do. And even though the sun is shining, well, I feel the rain. Here it comes again, dear. And even when you showed me my heart was out of tune, where there's no shadow of doubt, that's not letting me find you too soon. The music that you gave me, the language of my soul, Lord, I want to be with you. Won't you let me come in from the cold? Don't you let the sun fade away. Don't you let the sun fade away. Don't you let the sun be leaving. Won't you come to me soon? And even though the stars are listening and the ocean's deep, I just go to sleep. And then I create the silent movie. You become the star. And that's what you are, dear. Your whisper tells a secret. Your laughter brings me joy. And I wonder if feeling I'm nature's own little boy. But still the tears keep falling. They're raining from the sky. Well, there's a lot of me got to go under before I get high. Don't you let the sun disappear. Don't you let the sun disappear. Don't you let the sun be leaving. No, you can't be leaving my life. Say that you won't be leaving my life. Say that you won't be leaving my life. Say that you please. Say, won't you please? Say, won't you please? Say, won't you please? Lord, won't you come and get into my life? Lord, won't you come and get into my life? Say, won't you please? Say, won't you please? Say, won't you please? Say, won't you please? Lord, don't go. Don't go. come to me? Won't you come to me? And even when the song is over, where have I been? Was it just a dream? And though your door is always open, where do I begin? May I please come in, dear?
Thank you, Tom. That was just a perfect song to get me into my talk here, which it just ties in so beautifully. Thank you. It was wonderful. So I'm really excited to share with you some incredible, remarkable, and true stories that I've experienced and some that have been shared with me. And we're going to delve into the mystery of what lies beyond this life, where we experience signs and whispers and are reminded that Spirit loves us eternally, which is Unity's first principle, affirms that what our hearts already know, and that we are never alone, and that divine presence is everywhere, even during our time of great sorrow, and especially during that time. I'm going to begin by going back in time. I shared one of my stories in another talk here about my birthing experience, which actually left my body very low in immunity. And my parents were at that time, I was living in Germany, and my parents were about to embark on one of the very first boats that came to Canada after the war. And I was 2 years old at the time, and I got scarlet fever. And at that time in history, we didn't have as many of the tools and medications that we have now that assist that. So I was put into isolation for 6 weeks. So you can imagine, as a 2-year-old, with parents that were the most incredible, loving parents that anyone could imagine, just suddenly not be there. I couldn't see them any longer. So I was aware of some of this story, but my mom shared a little more detail. And she said what they did, I was in a private hospital and I was on the 2nd floor. And so Mom and Dad would be outside the hospital on the sidewalk across the street from the hospital so they could look up into the window. And the nurse brought me to the window, and that was how I could connect on the other side of the window. Now, as time passes by, and experiencing many different things with my parents, they are both now on the other side of the great window. And that inspired the name of my book that I'm still in the process of writing, called The Other Side of the Window. And these are all stories that whisper, we are okay. So what one might ask is, are they still with us? What is it that we experience in terms of a communication or a connection with those that have crossed over? I know for me, I often wish that I could see their spirit. I wish that they could come and say hi and know for sure that it didn't just end here. In my studies with the new seminary on my 2nd year, I studied in New York City, and we had to put together a minister's manual. And we had to perform many different ceremonies I was blessed for my first wedding ceremony. I actually performed the renewal of vows for my parents' 50th anniversary, which was lovely. Another ceremony that I was to perform was a celebration of life, and of course I kept putting that off to the very end. And a very dear friend of mine, Rosalind, who was also one of my Reiki teachers, she passed very suddenly. And I had agreed with her family that I would do her service. And part of that service was that I was to write a eulogy, my experience of spending my time with her. And I kept putting it off. And I would sit in my home in Pender Harbor. I lived alone there, and I would just watch a program on television and putting off writing the ceremony. And suddenly the channel changed. Now, I had 2 cats and a dog. I looked over, my cats were nowhere near the table where the remote was, and picked up the remote and I switched the channel back. And a few moments later, the channel changed again. And again, I picked up the remote, switched it back to the channel that I was watching, and then the TV turned off. So I went, okay, Rosalind, I get it. And so I wrote her eulogy, had a few tears, and it felt really good. I completed this writing the ceremony. And what I often did when I lived, it was just outside of Madeira Park overlooking Pender Harbor, the stars were brilliant there. And so I'd spend most of my evenings going out on the lounging chair and just lay there and just gaze at the stars. And this particular night was really brilliant, lots of stars in the sky. And as I was looking at the stars, I said, wow, Rosalind, you're really out there. Is there any way you could give me some kind of a sign? I didn't even finish the thought. And right in front of me, you know when you see a shooting star will go across the sky like this? Well, right where I was looking, this star came down about this speed, straight in front of me, straight down. So I paused and connected with that, and I went, wow, I mean, that's an amazing sign. Thank you. And I'm sitting there for a bit longer, and I says, you know, I just really want like some real proof that you're really out there. And right where I was looking again, and I've never seen anything like this before or since, this star got brighter, 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 and it became like a moon, a full moon in the sky. And it just lingered, and then it just diminished and disappeared. I almost imagine it was like the Star of David suddenly appearing or something, right? And I then said, you know what, Rosalind, I know that it was an amazing sign, and I know that should be proof, but I would just like to see your spirit standing there. So, of course, her kids got a kick out of that when I shared that in her service. You know, there's those types of, when you have those moments, when something like that happens, you realize that it's not our imagination. It's communion. It's a holy moment when the veil grows thin. Now, these stories, when I refer to Unity's principle, Unity's second principle is that we're spiritual beings and that we're created with the divine light. And if we truly are spiritual in nature, then the universe and the essence of who we are, it does continue. So it's real. It does continue. And the truth is really apparent when you get these different signs as proof and as presence. Now, my father was the first really deep, devastating loss that I experienced. I was by his side at his hospital bed, holding his hand, and his faith had wavered, and he was in a coma for a very long time, and I just spoke to him. I spoke to him about what I was doing and about my belief, and inviting him to go into the light. And I wanted to be there that moment when that happened. And I had my bed, a hospital bed, right up next to his, and had fallen asleep, and a nurse came in and turned on the bathroom light not to awaken us, and she just went, and she looked at him, and he waited for me to fall asleep when he actually passed. So to deal with the loss of my father, who I was his precious little girl. I mean, I as I said, I was very blessed with two parents that had full hearts of love. I could still do my classes and seminars, but I stopped doing my private sessions, my one-on-one counseling, because I didn't want someone else to be close enough to me and feel that dense energy of grief that I was experiencing. But I kept getting the messages, no, you've got to continue, get back and do your work. My very first 3 clients, synchronistically, were coming to me because they were having challenges grieving the loss of a parent. So as I'm counseling them, I'm going, you guys, I know what you're doing. And it was like I was counseling myself as I was speaking with them. And it was very healing for me. Now, the first thing I noticed after my dad died was the smell of cigarette smoke. My dad was a smoker. He says, that's my only vice. I'm going to keep on doing it. He would always go, my mom hated the fact that he smoked. He would always go outside, just have a few puffs and come back in. And I noticed the smell of cigarette smoke when I was in the car by myself, when I was home alone. It just seemed to appear quite often. Finally, I said to my mom, Mom, by any chance, are you smelling cigarette smoke? And she goes, yes, it's driving me crazy. I keep looking for it. I go outside. I go in the hallway. She lives in an apartment. And I can't figure out where it's coming from. And I said, I think that's Dad. I think that's Dad's way of letting us know he's here. And she said, well, why does he have to smoke? I says, well, Mom, probably maybe when you go, we'll smell lilacs. My dog Casper, Dalmatian, I often traveled in this particular day. I was going to be coming home that night, and the person I had looking after him had taken him for a walk in Lynn Canyon Park and all through there. And apparently he had run off with another group of dogs, and she hadn't been able to find him, and she was feeling terrible because I got home and there was no sign of him. So my family, we all started looking, and it was getting late now, and my daughter stayed with me as it was probably 10 o'clock at night, pitch black dark. We're looking with flashlights. First thing I noticed was the smell of cigarette smoke. Then, suddenly out of nowhere, out of the darkness, this mysterious stranger appeared, not with a flashlight or anything, and he had a dog with him. And so I said to him, by any chance, have you seen a Dalmatian? He'd show up because he's white in the darkness with the black spots. And have you seen a Dalmatian? He said, no, I haven't. But what you want to do is take something that has his smell, and preferably yours as well, and put that at the entrance of the park so that he will be able to come back to it. So I put his blanket on the picnic table right in the parking lot. When I went home that night, and I was creating all these flyers and ready to start really early in the morning looking for him, and I remember saying to Dad, Dad, please look after him, please look after him. I'm not ready to lose him. Again, smelling whiffs of cigarette smoke. I went really early in the morning, and there was my dog sitting right beside the picnic table. I titled that story, Dogs Have Angels Too. I found that as I was going through my grieving process, Mom had a really difficult time with hers. And my sister and I went to visit a friend who has the gift of communicating with spirits. She never did anything professionally with it, but she'd get a message, and it would be like if the message was for you, she'd say, look, this may sound strange, but your brother just came in and he said you've got to check your third drawer of such and such, and there's some paperwork you need to see, and you do with it what you want. And it was that kind of a thing. So we were having one of these wonderful, copious cups of tea, still sitting in our pajamas. It was in the afternoon, and I said to her, you know, Mom's having a really difficult time with Dad gone. If we're not imposing and if it's okay, could you see if Dad could give you a message that we can give to Mom, that she would know for sure that it was him speaking? And she immediately went, oh, he's right here right now, and he's so excited, and he says, tell her to remember the bird. Tell her to remember the bird. And I'm looking at her, and she says, does that mean anything to you? And I go, well, no. Sister's going, no. Meanwhile, I'm like fiddling with my napkin, and she goes, oh my gosh, and I guess I made it into, it looked like a bird, and I just went, put it down on the table real quick. And I thought, okay. So a couple of days later, we got home, and we had lunch with my mom. And we sat her down and told her the story. And when we said, he says to tell you to remember the bird, she had that same kind of response and said, the bird? I says, well, does that mean anything? She says, well, no. And so then I started grabbing at straws, and I said, well, maybe because you looked after him for a long time, maybe you felt like a bird trapped in a cage. I just didn't really feel, and I was disappointed. And so Mom had gone out into the other room, and about a moment later, we could hear her shout, I know what it is. And so she says, come here. She took us into the kitchen. She said, you know, your father and I were standing right here. And we had quite a few of our friends, one after another, that had passed away. And we were saying, you know, how do we know they still exist? I mean, how do we know there's anything after life? How do we know? They don't come back and say, hey, we're okay. And she said, I told your father, if I go before you, I'm going to move this bluebird magnet that's on the freezer door. And he said, and if I go before you, I'll move that. She said, so many times I've come into the kitchen and the bluebird magnet would be on the other side of the freezer door, and I'd put it back. And then it would be moved again, and I'd keep putting it back. And my mom was the kind of individual that if you had something on a table or somewhere that was facing exactly like this, and my brother would do this all the time, he would turn it ever so slightly, and while she was still talking, she would just automatically put it back in its rightful spot. So she would notice this bluebird magnet that had kept moving. And she said, well, I figured it was just because, you know, when I opened and shut the freezer door, it moved. And I said, okay, let me try. And I moved it and shut it probably a lot harder than she would have, and it didn't budge. She said, well, maybe I brushed against it with my shoulder. And I looked at her like, I said, Mom, you're all of 5 foot nothing. Your shoulder doesn't reach that high. And she said, well, how would he remember that? And I said, well, how did you remember it? She said, I went in the other room, and as though it had just happened the other day, I remembered us standing there and giving that signal for each other to let us know about remembering the bird. I now have that bluebird magnet on my freezer door. In fact, on her freezer door, on the other side of it, was a lottery ticket from my dad, even before my dad passed, which was 10 years before then, with the winning numbers and their written number on it. And I'm going, why would this lottery ticket be here? So every now and then I play those numbers thinking maybe that was a way that she had of, there was no inheritance, maybe this was the way she would provide. But there's so many different things, you know, and that's why the subtitle of my book, The Other Side of the Window, is Stories That Whisper, We Are Okay. So there's many stories I've been blessed with. And I have so much, there's so many things, as I was putting this talk together, there's so many things to share. And then, of course, I wanted to put a bit of humor in there, you know, because it's fun to just come off and start with a bit of laughter. And then I'm deciding, which one will I do? So I talked to my cousin who was a teacher for many years of grades 1 and 2. And she talked about how she would have the kids come together and how they would have, you know, a show and tell day. And we were talking about this particular story, and I thought, I'm going to have to, it's nothing to do with what we were just talking about. It's a little sidetrack, a little bit of humor, and we both had a chuckle yesterday, so we decided this is what I'm going to share with you today. So this is a teacher that actually had let her students know that it was going to be show and tell, and one of her little students, Erica, she was a very outgoing kid, and she had taken her turn as she waddled up to the front of the class with a pillow stuffed under her sweater. And she holds up a snapshot of an infant and says, "This is Luke, and it's my baby brother, and I'm going to tell you about his birthday. First, Mom and Dad made him as a symbol of their love, and then Dad put a seed in my mom's stomach, and Luke grew in there, and he ate for 9 months through the umbrella cord." So she's standing there with her little hands on the pillow, and teacher's trying not to laugh. And the kids are watching in astonishment. And she said, then, about 2 Saturdays ago, my mom starts going, oh, 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 oh. And she's putting this on, she's putting this big show, and she's putting her hand at her back, and she's groaning and bending over, walking around. And she said, my dad called the middle wife. She delivers babies. But she doesn't have a sign on her car like the Domino pizza van. But anyway, they got my mom to lie down in bed like this, and now she's leaning against the wall. And she said, and then, push, my mom had this bag of water that she kept in there in case she got thirsty. And it just blew up and spilled all over, and she's demonstrating this whole thing. And then the middle wife starts saying, push, push, and breathe, breathe. They started counting, but they never even got past 10. Then all of a sudden, out comes my brother. He was covered in yucky stuff, and they all said it was from Mom's play center. So there must have been a lot of toys inside there. When he got out, the middle wife spanked him for crawling up there in the first place. Then Erica stood up and took a bow and went back to her seat. But it was just such a cute little story. I had to share that. Lighten things up. There's so many things. When my mother, just prior to her passing, I stayed with her for several weeks. At that time, I traveled. I was doing world tours, and I was traveling. I had everything in storage. And I stayed with her for 2 weeks, and they were the best 2 weeks that we ever spent together. She could be really challenging at times, but these particular 2 weeks were really amazing. And she shared a lot of stories with me at that time. And I was packing up for a trip. I was going to Lake Louise. I was a keynote speaker there. And I had a necklace that a dear friend from Hawaii had made. And I couldn't find it. It was lost. And my mom lived in the Park Royal Towers next to the Park Royal Mall there, so she was very close. And she knew I had gone to the mall. She was so upset. She was more upset about the loss of the necklace than I was. And so when I left, she says, "I'm going to find your necklace." So now I'd gone away. She was thrilled to be able to her sister's 80th party. The entire family had gotten together. She was really thrilled about that. And when I called her after my talk, I was still in Alberta, she was so excited about the whole family being there and talked about the party. And then she goes, "I have something to tell you." And I said, "What's that?" And in a sing-song voice, she said, "I found your necklace." And I said, "You what?" And again, she repeated, "I found your necklace." And I said, "Oh." And she said, "Well, but I did tell a little white lie." And I went, "Oh no, Mom, what did you do?" She said, "Well, my brochures had a picture of me wearing the necklace." She said, "I went to the mall, and I went into every store that I knew you went to, and I let the people know that you had lost that necklace, and then it belonged to someone that was so special to you, and it was the only thing, and that person had passed, and it was the only thing you left of that person." And I said, "Mom, you didn't." She says, "Well, I figured that if anyone found the necklace and thought about keeping it, if they knew that story, they'd hand it in." She said, I came home from the birthday gathering, and got into my pajamas, and I was getting into bed early, and I noticed there was a message on my answering machine. And the message was from the security people at the mall saying someone had turned it in. And you know, I just knew I had to get it right away. I got dressed and I went to the mall and I picked it up and I put it in the little angel box that's on my dresser. And those were the last words I had with my mom. Because the next morning when it looked like she was calling, but it was my son calling on her number, and she had a massive stroke. Now, there are so many experiences I've had where when one goes into prayer and set intention, but she was basically brain dead. They had kept her alive for me to come back and see her. And so when we had spent that time in the hospital and coming back into her home to release all of her belongings, there was the little angel box on her dresser. And that is so special to me. So now that necklace really is very special and is from someone that was very special to me that's now crossed over. I told that story to my friend that made the necklace, and of course he had sobbed. It's so many different signs. With my mom, we had ladybugs. I always thought we were going to smell lilacs. But what I found was that we'd go in the elevator, and she had passed in October, and there would be ladybugs all through the elevator. There'd be ladybugs on my clothes as I'd walk into her room. They'd be in my car, and I was not the only one noticing it. My sister and brother had noticed it as well. And so every time we see a ladybug, we see that as a sign of my mom being there. And on one of my retreats, the dolphin retreats, she had actually done about 8 of these retreats with me. She's like with her snorkel gear and really getting into it. And so I had gone to this retreat. This is after my mom passed. And we were sitting having coffee at a lovely cafe overlooking the ocean before going on to our boat trip. And as we were sitting there, I noticed there was a black iridescent bug on my arm. And the girl next to me said, "Oh, there's a ladybug." And I said, "Well," she says, "Yeah, they have black iridescent ladybugs in Hawaii." And then I realized it was March the 2nd. That was her birthday. And when we got on the boat, I decided I'm going to call my sister, because we always had didges playing and drums, and as we're going out on the boat, and she had done many of the retreats. So I called her and I told her the story about the ladybug. But what I did when I went to call my sister, I realized, and this is now years after my mom had passed, I realized I had dialed my mom's number. And I went, "Oh, okay." And I hung up very quickly, called my sister. We had a lovely conversation, hung up, put the phone down, and my phone rang, and it said, "Mom calling." And of course, I realized it was whoever has her number now probably, received it and wondered who had called. But the fact to see that, and it was her birthday. So signs come in many different ways. I'm just looking at my time, and I wanted to share very quickly. Gosh, there's so much to share. I've done wilderness retreats on the Sunshine Coast, because a really great way to connect with a loved one is to go into nature, to go into that stillness, to go into the quietness. I love connecting with what I call the standing trees, the standing people as the trees, and just having those nature connect exercises that we would do. And I was doing some work with a fellow by the name of Wayne, who was really excited about going to the retreat. And a week before the retreat, he passed away. So when we had all gathered, and actually it was a boat ride to get there. It was a really remote wilderness spot. And we were all gathered at this retreat. It was a vision quest that we were doing. And I introduced Wayne to the group, and I said, "I know he'd want to be here, so I'm putting this chair. We're inviting him if he wants to join us." So as they were doing exercises, there was a little bird at my feet, and I had a handful of seeds, sunflower seeds, and a few little snacks, and it actually came right up into my hand and ate some of those seeds, and then it went up onto my shoulder, and it just hung there everywhere I went. I had this bird on my shoulder. And then I had one of the tents Woke up in the morning, and there was this really fat bird outside my tent. I said, there's two of you? And it just kind of preened itself up, and it had fluffed up for the cold. And it literally would walk beside me. I was worried about someone stepping on it. It would run around, and we'd walk around when we were eating, and it would be in our circle, and it would fly onto other people's heads as they were writing. It would look down at what they were doing. Got all these pictures of people with this bird. So I asked the owner, I said, do you know what kind of bird that is? And he says, I'm not sure. He says, how long has it been here? He says, I've never seen it before. So we brought out a bird book, and we opened this big bird book, and we said, oh, there it is. And it was a thrush. And the bird landed on the bird book and looked down at the picture. And it was so remarkable. When we left, we had 2 boat trips heading out. And on the last trip, as I was walking down the wharf after doing a whole check around the campsite, I could hear click, 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 click. I was running alongside the wharf, and I felt bad. I said, you've got to stay here. You can't come with me. And we got into the boat and left. I called the owner shortly after. He says, I haven't seen it since you left. And I truly believe it was Wayne coming to spend time with us as a bird. You know, and the stories lend themselves to whatever your interpretation of that is, whatever feels right for you. There's many more. If you have some to share, I would love for us to connect to get them, because the book will be a series of short stories. And the whole idea is to have it ease our grief, to show that there is something more, and to give us hope, and to help us through our journey of grief at the loss. There's even Alexander from the Proof of Heaven stated, my experience showed me that the death of the body and the brain are not the end of consciousness, that human experience continues beyond the grave. So I invite you to open some journals, like to create journals, dream journals, you know, because often they will come to see us in dreams. A journal of synchronicities, a journal of messages, or to write, or to create a ceremony if you're going through some issues where you're not able to let go of guilt, or let go of grief, or let go of anger, or whatever, is to create a ceremony where you write whatever that is, and take all of that you're stuck inside, put it onto paper, and release. You can write a letter to that individual, whatever it is, and then take your paper and burn it, and then bury the ashes. By writing it, it's you releasing it from your body, opening so that you're free to move forward. The burning is to release, and burying the ashes is to allow the new to come into your life. It's a very powerful process. In closing, I just wanted to close with this blessing. So may you know deep in your soul that love never ends, that the ones you have loved and lost are not truly lost at all. May you feel the presence of Spirit walking beside you, speaking in signs and guiding through grace, and reminding you again and again, you are eternal, you are loved, and you are never alone. May you find the time to gather with each other, to share your precious stories. May your hearts be open, your minds at peace, and your spirit be ready to receive the whispers from the other side of the window. Thank you.
Help me find peace in the darkness of night. I surrender my will to the power of light. Help me find strength to calm all my fears and my gratitude flows. It brings me to tears. It's a thrill to release with each calming breath, enfolded in the sheltering arms of the one who is peace. With this infinite joy, the new day reminds me I am not alone in this world. My journey to freedom has begun. I am united with this world. That's the power of one. Help us find love. Our spirit awakes to serenity's jewel that the universe makes. Help us accept all life as divine, for as long as we love, that jewel will shine. It's a thrill to release with each calming breath, enfolded in the sheltering arms of the one who is peace. With this infinite joy, the new day reminds us we are not alone in this world. My journey to freedom has begun. We are united with this world. That's the power of one. That's the power of one. The power of one. Thank you.
And let's give it up one more time for the very talented Tom Arson. Woo! And thank you, Hannelore, for those wonderful stories. Really appreciate it. And now we come to the time in our service where we bless our love offerings. Your generous support enables us to continually bring you world-class teachers and insights that, when put into practice, genuinely transform your life for the better. Please know that Unity is 100% supported by your donations, from the teachers to musicians to the coffee after the service, and so much more. It's all made possible by your support, so please accept our thanks in advance. And so now let's say our offering statement together. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. And if you're here in person, please drop off your donations with the ushers as you exit the sanctuary. And to donate online, simply click on the donate link in your chat window. You can give you can give via all major credit cards. And if you're here in person and want to use your credit card or interact, you can do so quickly at the bookstore. And you can also give by e-transfer to donations@unityofvancouver.org. And now, coming up at Unity, our next Explore Your Inner Being class will take place this Thursday, March 22nd, and will be hosted by Margaret McLeod and Terry Collette. And this upcoming program is on the topic of self-hypnosis and will be led by our Car Roman. Car is a clinical hypnotherapist and has been practicing since July of 2013. Carr was trained at the Pacific Institute of Advanced Hypnotherapy, which is the only hypnotherapy course recognized by the Canadian College of Physicians and Surgeons. Carr points out that growing research suggests it is possible to connect with the deeper powers of both our conscious and subconscious minds through hypnosis. And at this upcoming class, Carr will be teaching us the basics of self-hypnosis so we can do it ourselves. Participants are welcome to bring a yoga mat, a blanket, and a pillow for a deeper experience. So again, it's this Thursday, May 22nd from 7 to 9 at the Unity lower level. All are welcome, and it's by donation. We will be also welcoming back Reverend Thomas DeShooter for another invigorating sound bath on Friday, June 6th at 7:30. Please join us for a deeply rejuvenating sound bath and meditation experience. Immerse yourself in the healing vibrations of crystal singing bowls, gongs, and chimes as they guide you into deep relaxation and inner stillness. This is an opportunity to release tension, calm the nervous system, and connect with your true self. And if you were at the last one, you know how wonderful it was. So I encourage you to come out for that. You can get your tickets soon at unityofvancouver.org. And of course, our Course in Miracles study group is still live at Unity every Tuesday from 12:30 to 2:30 at the lower level. And next week, our speaker will be Alexandra Gale. And finally, check out our mastermind group. Join us and enjoy the unconditional support of dedicated prayer partners using the easy-to-learn mastermind framework that have brought about amazing results for thousands of people at Unity churches around the world. Meetings are downstairs in the meditation room every Sunday from 10 to 10:30. And today, our affirmative prayer chaplains are Barb Richards, Mike Richards, and Raymond Lancaster with Marilyn Norrie on Zoom. Please stand so people can see you. And to have a confidential prayer with one of our chaplains, simply come up to the front after the music is finished, and you'll find the chaplains here in the front row who will be very happy to support you in prayer. And they especially love praying with people for the first time. If you're watching on Zoom, I'll show how you can participate in just a few minutes.